Hi everybody, this is David with Tigner Adventures, and today we're going to be working on our car. It's our tow vehicle. It gets towed behind our motorhome, and so it kind of gets jerked all over the place, especially on some of these rough roads we've been on lately. I need to replace the front bearings on this vehicle. I was doing something with the tires, checking them or something. I can't remember what it was now, but then I noticed that the bearings were just a little bit loose, so they're starting to get kind of old and they need to be replaced. Now this is a 2001 Hyundai Santa Fe, so it is how many years? That's like 23 years old. The nice thing about this, about everything on it, is under AutoZone or O'Reilly warranty. So it's kind of nice. And my philosophy has always been, if the vehicles don't cost more than what it would cost to buy a new one and have that payment every month, then I'm just going to keep working on the vehicles I got, because this is still a pretty nice car. So anyway, today we're going to replace the bearings, and that's going to require a little bit of work, so I'm going to take you along with me just to show what's going on there. But we're going to replace the two front bearings, and then I need to replace the two bushings that are in the trailing arm on the rear of the vehicle. If you remember in this video here, we were in New Jersey, and we had to replace the trailing arm, which was, the tire was almost ready to fall off. So good thing we replaced it. I picked up a couple trailing arms in, where was that? South Carolina at a pick and pull. So I had those with me, but the bushings on those aren't in too good a shape, but it was good enough to get me back to here. So I have ordered those bushings from Hyundai. They will be here in a couple days, and so in the meantime I'm going to get this other work all done. So let's just get going on it. Okay, this is what we're talking about. This is the front wheel, and this nut has to be removed. So the first thing, there is a cotter key between there, so I'm going to take that cotter key out, and then I'll take that nut off, and 9/8's going to hold the brake on there while I break that loose, because I don't want to put that extra tension on the transmission. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Took a little bit of extra strength, but we're going to do that on the other side too, because we're going to replace both of these. All right, that one's done. Now I'm going to go ahead and break the lug nuts on the tires. They're not on there very tight. These are aluminum rims, so those are only on there at 80 foot-pounds, which is hardly anything. But they're a lot easier to break with the tire on the ground than it is when it's in the air rolling around. So anyway, so that's done. I'll do the other tire, and then we're going to go ahead and jack this up. Now it's important to note that you should always put your vehicle on jack stands before you work on it, and also chock the back wheels. Even though I have back brakes, my parking brakes on, I'm putting those chocks there because the tires do slide a little bit. Those are done. Both sides here are on jack stands now. The wheels move freely, so I can go ahead and pull those off, and we have to take the knuckles off, and I'll show you what a knuckle is when we get these tires off. Now before I take this other side off, I did want to show you what I was talking about. So if I take the wheel, and I'm just grabbing my fingers in the tread, I can actually get this thing to move. And you can feel it, so it's not the linkage that's moving, it's the actual bearing within the knuckle that is wiggling right here. So, and it's probably more noticeable if you go up and down, and that way you're not twisting the linkage. All right, so this here, you look up here, it's got these springs on it. This is known as the strut. And the strut does have these two bolts that bolt onto this piece here. And this piece that the drive line is going through right here, and bottom here, this is the lower ball joint, but this main piece here is what they call a knuckle. So we got to get the knuckle off, which requires us to pull these disc brakes off. We've got to undo these 2 bolts here. We've got to, if I angle this down, we got our tie rod end right there. We got to pull that off, and we've got to pull off this lower ball joint right here. So, and in doing so, we got to check all these. We want to make sure that our CV axle doesn't have any breaks in the rubber and things like that. But everything looks good, so we're just going to pull that apart. I have picked up a number of sockets and wrenches. This vehicle, for the most part, is all 17 millimeter. It is all metric, and it's pretty easy to deal with. However, if we zoom in right here, let me see if I can get a better shot of this one right here. This nut and bolt that's up here, this is a 14 and 15. 14 on this side, and the nut over here is a 15. And the reason is it's because if you look at this one down here, you can see it's a lot bigger than this one. And so what they do is your wheel should be going down the road fairly straight up and down. There is a little bit of a curve on it somehow. I don't know. I can't remember what they call that either. But it's got to have a little bit of a tilt to it one way or the other. And what happens is that, I'll show you this bolt when I pull it out. It's got a little oblong piece in there. They can twist it to make it turn back and forth. And so as the car gets older, things bend, whatever the case may be, sometimes those have to be adjusted. And so that's a little kit they put on there to make sure that they can do that. And so that's how they do the alignment. So I'm gonna, when I pull that off, I'll show you how that works. But before I pull that off, I want to actually pull off the tie rod end right here, because that tie rod end and the lower ball joint down here, I want to take those off first so that this knuckles just not dangling there. So anyway, and then once I get those done, I'll pull off the disc brakes right here. And they come off really easy because there's only 2 bolts back here, so my finger's on them, on one of them. But in this case, there's only 2 bolts right there, so that's what we're going to pull off. So let's get to it. Each one of these have cotter keys on them like this did here, so we want to undo the cotter keys and pull those out. All right, so I have undone this nut right here, and I've undone this nut down here. Now, it's important that you don't bang on these. A lot of people bang on these to get these to pop out, but the problem is then you mess up the threads on those bolts. So I don't know if you can see this one here. I'll try to take a picture of it, but it does come to a more of a little point, so you can bang on the bolt itself to knock it out of there instead of doing it on the actual nut. So again, we don't want to do it on the nut itself because those threads get all kind of messed up, and it doesn't take a lot to mess these threads up. Now all I'm using is just a little, if I can get it in the picture here, it's just a little ball peen hammer to do that with. And I'll have to hit that, I'll have to get under there a little bit better to do that. But up here, the idea is to hit around this piece right here on the knuckle. And what that does is it breaks any of the rust and things there that's holding that, and this will pop out. Also, before we go too far here and getting started, I want to make sure and disconnect my battery. I have a little manual. I always buy a manual for my vehicles, and the first step it always says is disconnect the negative on the battery. And the reason for that is that way your airbag doesn't get deployed accidentally from when you're banging around on things and it's changing all around, or whatever may happen. You don't want to have to deal with that too. So I'm just going to undo my battery here, and it doesn't take a lot, so we'll just undo that and put it to the side, and you can kind of spread that apart a little bit, but we're just going to take this out of here. I'm putting it to the side away from this, and then I'll go ahead and close the hood. Aha, see how that just popped up there? Okay, that is done there. Now this turns around here.
We're going to go ahead and, I don't know if you can see that, but we're going to go ahead and knock this bolt out of here. Okay, bolt's coming out. There's the bolt. So I'm going to put the nut back on there. You can see a split right there. So we want to put a little chisel thing in there, expand that out a little bit, and then that way the ball joint will fall off. I like to scrape a line right here on this knuckle because I need to adjust this bolt so it's right on that line again. So I do that with my sharp end of a screwdriver. On both sides here. That way I know right where to do that. Alright, so you can see that line that I made right here. You can see how far that's out. And as I turn this bolt, you can see how that adjusts that in. And if you look at that, you can see how that bolt is got that little lip around it right here. That's what's making that adjustment. So the next step is we got to get rid of this caliper here. So that was a 17. Let's see, oh, where's my 17? Right here. So we're going to go ahead and break those loose. Remember, there's two of these. And then we also have this little catch right here. So we're going to kind of knock that out of there. This is what's holding the brake line on. It's just a little slide thing that slides on and off. And so we'll slide that out of there. So there's our brake line. That's what slides in there. I don't know if you can see that, but holds it in that little piece on the strut there. So we're going to just set that to the side here and grab some wires so when we take this off we can just lift it up. So we've got this ready to go. I usually always carry baling wire. You can buy a roll of baling wire that you can keep with you to use for doing these kinds of jobs, and in my case it's probably in the other rig. So as usual, right, it's the problem with having two rigs. So I've got some electrical wire here, so I'm going to use this instead. It's some heavy-duty wires, so it'll be good enough. It just needs to hold this up out of the way so that it's not putting any pressure on this brake line. That's our biggest concern right here. So anyway, so we've got this. I'm going to just pull out some of this and get it ready to go. So we're going to tie it up in here on the spring. So that's out of the way. No pressure on that brake line. And I like to put these back in where they came out of so that I don't forget. All right, then we got this nut. This is the axle that we're gonna pull off of here. Now there's nothing on this axle per se. And when we push that, you can see how it just goes back and forth. So we just made that loose. And then that way when we take this nut off up here on this strut, this will kind of move and we can kind of tip it forward and pop that axle out of there. Okay, so there's the CV axle right there. Just gonna lift this up to try to keep some of the pressure off of that ball joint while I'm banging around on it. That is the knuckle. We do need to take the rotor off. All right, so this is actually a number 3 Phillips. So I've got it's a bigger head. So, all right, got that right out. So this comes off. And if you notice right here, see there's the one I screwed out. Here's the one I drilled out because it was stuck in there too hard. And the other thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take this guard off. So this just holds this on this knuckle, and the 2 holes here is where this caliper bolts go through. So that's what actually holds that there and protects your discs from the backside. Notice here, this is the lower ball joint. See if I can't get a better picture of that. And it has a little groove in there, and that's what the bolt sits through on this bottom piece right here. So this bolt goes through here, and that little bit right there is what is going into that ball joint to hold that on. So, but this is what they call a knuckle, and there's the bearing that we're going to replace. And basically what happens is this piece right here is pushed into the center of that bearing, and the bearing itself is pushed into this knuckle. So this is that's what happened. We had to take it to a machine shop to have that dealt with. We have the 2 knuckles out, and they're ready to go to the machine shop. So in going through and looking at everything, the only thing that we have an issue with is this one ball joint. This is on the driver's side, but all these CV boots and the tie rod ends and things like that, they all look good. So I think we're good. We just have to get one of these and we can put that on pretty easily. So it's just these 2 little clamp thing there you take off to put that on. So that's pretty easy. Okay, I took those knuckles into the machinist to get taken care of, and I picked up the new bearings from O'Reilly. They have a 3-year warranty on it. So bearings is one thing that does not have lifetime. However, I asked them about my ball joint that I showed you earlier, and they said, no, you bought a single ball joint, but you returned it. So I went over to AutoZone, found out that I bought the control arm from them, and it has a lifetime warranty. So they ordered another one in for me. It'll be in the morning. And this is pretty easy to take out. It's just those 3 holes, the 2 right here, and then this one right over here. And it is a lot easier if you use an impact wrench to undo those because they set back in there. So they're a little bit off, hard to get to, and the other one's right there. You can see that bolt right there in the center where that used to sit. So a lot easier with the impact wrench. So my buddy, what I'm staying with right now, happens to have this DeWalt one, which is a really high-powered one. I don't really need one quite that high-powered, but I ordered a impact wrench from Home Depot. It's a rigid, and let's see, I can't remember. I think it's 1,300 foot-pounds is what it does, or something like that. Anyway, I'll be showing that eventually because between that and some other things that I found out, those are things that you want to have when you have a big rig, because it makes it a lot easier to get things off. So for example, when we replace our shocks on the big rig. But anyway, this is done for now, and we're just waiting for those parts to come back from from the, what is it called? Oh, machinist. And then we're also waiting for those other parts to come in with Hyundai. So we'll be working on the rest of this once those things come in. We have returned from the parts store. So over here on the left, we have our Knockles with new bearings in them. Nice and smooth. We have this new assembly here, which has the ball joint, lower ball joint on it right over there. That's the control arm there for the front. Now we just have to put them on. And figuring out which side these go on, the tie rod end goes in this hole. So that's the back of the knuckle, and the calipers go on the front. So That means that that's going to be on the passenger side, and this one's going to be on the driver's side. I mentioned that I have a book for each one of my vehicles. I tried to buy this. We bought this car when it was brand new, so they had these books out, but once they get a little older, it's harder to find these. You have to go to the parts store and have them order them in or something like that. But this actually lists out each section of the manual, whether it's something with the engine or the exhaust or the brakes. It has everything in here, and this has all the torques that all these bolts need to be torqued down to. Now, the reason we do a torque on these is because different ones have more value, higher value than others, and if you don't get it torqued on there, they'll come loose. If you get it tightened too tight, you can break them. So it's best to, so I usually try to go by the torque, and I have a lot less chance of breaking them off, especially when they get smaller. These bigger ones, a lot harder to do that with. But for example, on this control arm here, or this strut, these go onto this knuckle at 80 foot-pounds. So that's what we set the torque at. But I got to look these up, and I'll tell you what these are supposed to be at. In the back of this book is a table of contents right here, or index, I should say. And so I looked up control arm. That's what I need to put on first, and it says it's in 10.7. So there's different sections here, and so we're going to page 10.7, and that actually tells us, the steps to remove it right here, and then how to put it back, which is just the reversal of the removal. But what happens is if you go to the front of section 10, then we have all these torque values here that are listed right here by foot-pounds or by inch-pounds. So you got to pay attention to which ones they are, but most of them in this case will be foot-pounds. But if you notice right here, if I can point out this one, this is on the airbag module screws, so they're little smaller screws. It's 36 to 48 inch-pounds. That is a difference because it takes 12 inch-pounds to make 1 foot-pound. So just your standard mathematics there. So anyway, we need to look up the bolts that we're going to be doing here and find out those torques. All right, so control arm to subframe bolts are 74 to 88 foot-pounds, and the struts, the lower ones I was showing you earlier, are 74 to 88 foot-pounds. But notice on the struts, the upper bolts, which are up inside of the hood area, they're only set up as 33 to 44 foot-pounds. So it's important to find them, especially if you're using aluminum. Iron is a little more forgiving. You don't strip them out as easily as you can with aluminum, but you can break the bolt itself. So paying attention to this is key to putting it all back together and not worrying about it. And also the torque that goes on this axle right here is how much pressure is on that bearing. And if you put too much on there, a lot of people, the guy that puts these in says a lot of people put too much torque on them, and then it wears that bearing out that much faster than what it's supposed to be wore out as. So it's important to do those torques correctly. So in this case, we're going to go 74 to 88. So I usually like to go about 80 in that case, or 82, something like that. And then that way, if I go just a little bit past, I'm still within my torque specs. Now you'll notice that these bolts can get, these are pretty good because they're inside the little housing there. This one's getting quite a bit of rust on it. So I do like to spray these with WD-40, just kind of lube it up just a little bit to let it go back and forth in there a little bit. The other thing you can use is this PB Blaster stuff. What it does is it makes it so that you can get them to come out easier if they're rusted on there. And it puts a coating on here so that it helps it so it doesn't rust anymore. And if you look here, we got a lot of rust buildup. That's just an area that's within inside that sleeve that we're not actually screwed to. So we don't necessarily care about that piece of it, but that's this part here, we don't want it rusting into the nut that's on there. I should make a note here really quick. This little shim was inside on this one portion of this T that goes across there. And so I want to make sure I put that back in there again, because that's part of the way they align the vehicle. So over the years they had to add this, so we want to keep it in there. Just to show you a close-up of this, this is that little sleeve I put back in there because it hangs out this way a little bit. So that's part of the alignment of the vehicle. So we want to make sure we get those all in there, and then we're going to torque those down. So this is our torque wrench, and I don't know if you can see right here, but there's some numbers along the sleeve of a wrench here, and this base twists, and it's got little numbers here too, 0 to 10, 0 to 10, and you just keep turning it until it's balanced with the number on here. So I set this at 82, so this 0 was 0 or 80, and then I went to the 2, so 82 foot-pounds. I've pre-tightened these up a little bit, so now let me see if I can get these to torque. You want them to, the torque will actually click, which is different than this clicking of the ratchet. It's not that click. You'll see here. Let me see if I can. All right. Okay, and let's move it. Oh, there it goes. All right, so that one's torqued at 82, and we'll do the same with the others. Okay, that one's done. Whew. All right. Now we're ready to put the knuckle on here. So that's our axle. I pulled these bolts off. These were on this strut right here, and this control arm's got this lower ball joint that was bad before. The rubber was bad. It's got this post right here, and that post is going to go right into that part right there. So I cleaned that up a little bit. It should just slide right on. Oh yeah, just slides right on there. Okay, so now the one on the bottom there for the lower ball joint actually has a hole in the middle of it compared to the ones for the struts. That's because this one has a cotter key or cotter pin that goes in it to make sure that the nut doesn't come off the end. And so that's what's important on that. So we're going to go ahead and put that through there and get that put in. New parts are always nice. Go a lot better. Now, interesting enough, this nut and the bolt itself are both 17 millimeter. So we got to pull this down right here and get this axle back in there first. This here little shroud here keeps getting in my way. There it goes. There we go. All right, this goes through here like this. Let's just go right on there like that. Now, this side here doesn't have that adjusting bolt like the other side did. I showed you how that worked. So this one, there's no adjustment. It just works. The only adjustment was on that control arm right there. So, okay, I have double check the torques on this. We're gonna put these on at 80. Okay, now just got this bottom U-joint one to put on. All right, so that's done. Let's have our play in there. Okay, this rotor has little alignment holes right here to screw into these screws. This one I drilled out, that one came out. So I just need to make sure I get it back on there in the same place. The last thing to do is we've got to put this caliper back on. Well, I guess it's not the last because we got our tie rod we gotta still deal with. this brake thing back in here again. Okay, that's back on there. So turns fine. Whoops. Forgot it's turning all the way through on the other side. Okay. So that side's done, that's done. We just have to put our tie rod end back on. And we got to torque these down. So what was the caliper? That's the brake. You can tell I've used this book a lot. It's falling all apart. But it's been a good book. All right, so there's a caliper mounting bolts. And there's 16 to 24 caliper mounting bracket bolts, 58 to 74. So the caliper mounting bracket bolts is the one that we want. So 74 is the high. Okay. And then last but not least, gotta put this guy back together. Keep saying last but not least, but we still got the tie rod to deal with over here. Can't leave anything unhooked. That wouldn't be very good. All right, so tie rod goes on here. We're not going to torque this until we have it sitting down again and 9-net can push on that brake. All right. Now, this particular tie rod end is a little different. I just replaced it a couple of years ago. This one does not have a cotter pin that goes through it like the other side does. So it doesn't even have a get it up here. It doesn't even have a hole in here at all. It's just a bolt that's self tapping, or not tapping, but locking. So we're going to put that on there. Tie rod into steering knuckle nut, 25 foot-pounds. So this is the tie rod end, this is the knuckle, and so it's the tie rod end to steering knuckle, and it's the nut. So that one is only 18 to 25 foot-pounds. So we got to back this off quite a ways. And we should be good. Don't take a lot. All right, this end, or this side is really done now, other than torquing this. So I've put the wheels back on and I've torqued them at 80. That's what they were supposed to be torqued at. These are aluminum wheels. So after you drive about 60 to 80 miles, you're supposed to retorque them again because they will change a little bit. So anyway, that part's done. I've torqued the center nut on there. It said at 145 foot-pounds. So I've torqued it at 145 foot-pounds, and I've put a cotter pin there. I put one on the tie rod end and on the lower ball joint on this side. This is a kit that I picked up at Harbor Freight, and it has all different size cotter pins in there. So when you take those old ones off, you're never supposed to reuse them. So you always just throw those away and put brand new ones on. That's the safe way to do it. So this is done. We're gonna check out the trailing arm now and show you what that's all about. If you watched the other video I did when we were in New York, or New Jersey, I guess, this is what the trailing arm looks like. And what's gone bad is this bushing right here. So you can kind of see that wiggles around a little bit. But I bought new ones. So these have to be pressed in there. And this particular trailing arm is for the left side, so it's just extra. I haven't used it yet. And the one I replaced in New Jersey was on the right side here, so the passenger side. I'm going to pull this one back off so I can take these both up to the machinist and have him put these new bushings in there. So that'll work out a lot better. But you can see that that bushing is in pretty bad shape. And you know, they've been sitting there for 20 years plus, so they're bound to go bad at some point. There they are, all done. These new pieces are all pushed in here, so that's permanent now. Don't move. Pretty solid. The ones that were in there, just when you pushed on them, you could just push them all the way out, so they were completely bad. So this would be good. Now we just have to install them back onto the car and we'll be all done. Well, the job is all done, and so now I've replaced the 2 front bearings, and I've replaced this trailing arm on the back here, and we got a new control arm up front. So I figure, you know, I spent about $320 to do this whole job. That's not counting any labor, since I'm free and it's my vehicle, so that's okay. So anyway, if I took this into a shop and had it done, it would have been quite expensive. So I'm pretty happy with the job. It turned out really well. And as I was going through the car, I happened to find my roll of baling wire. So, you know, you can buy this. I mean, it lasts forever because it's pretty wound tight there. But this stuff is good for pulling things up out of the way or fixing things as you're traveling around. So I store all my tools and everything in my car, so I don't know what I was thinking, but this is my garage. And so there's a little bit of weight back here, and so the car has to be able to handle that. So anyway, it's all done. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully that helps you out, you know, a little bit. That's just one of those other upkeep tasks that you have to keep going. The car takes a lot of abuse being towed behind the motorhome all the time. So right now we've got 250,000 miles on this car on the speedometer, but we've got about 80,000 miles towing on it now. So it adds up fast. So it's doing good. It's going to need new tires here pretty soon too. But that'll be another video for sure. So thanks for coming along, and we'll see you on down the road or maybe on the next video. So take care.